Meanwhile, European Union member states are in the process of discussing the length of a proposed extension to the UK's October 31 deadline for leaving the EU, with most states understood to favour a 3-month delay with an option to leave earlier if Johnson's new withdrawal agreement bill is ratified by British Parliament. The Prime Minister, meanwhile, has offered to give British lawmakers more time to debate his deal if they back a general election on December 12, with members of Parliament set to vote on Monday on a motion to send the UK to the polls again. Well, let's talk to Juliana in London. Hello, Juliana. Good afternoon. Well, Brexit is still hot on the wires. What is the latest at the moment?
Well, Chimeze, the main thing is that October the 31st, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson's do or die, dead in a ditch Brexit promise is well and truly over. The November the 6th budget, it was supposed to be the first post-Brexit budget. That's been scrapped, and that's all been done because the Prime Minister is urging MPs to back a December the 12th election. This has not happened for almost 40 years in British history. Elections typically take place in April, purely because of the weather, really. British folks don't really like to come out when it's typically cold. But we know that Boris Johnson has failed twice to get opposition members to back a general election. But he says, you know, the fact that they're trying to delay or thwart, as he says, the Brexit process, he has called throughout today, because he's been doing a series of press briefings, that Parliament is full of zombies. It's a dead Parliament and it needs to be changed. Of course, if it is changed and he does manage to get a majority, then it will be much easier for him to pass legislation, because, of course, he has failed all but one vote that's been going through it. Labour have said at the moment they don't see that they will back this legislation on Monday unless he is willing to do one or two things. So we're not back at square one, but the whole entire Brexit process seems to have taken a little step back to where it was at the beginning of last week.
Well, it's past midday, and in all of these developments, where are the markets at the moment, and what is the outlook for next week?
Well, next week, of course, is the start of a new month, so we'll be looking very closely at those purchasing manager index figures, especially because the pound earlier this month had a pretty soaring rate. But let's look at those numbers specifically at intraday. The FTSE All Share is down 0.58%. Also, the FTSE 100 is down 0.55%, and the FTSE 250 is also down at 0.70%. The British pound not having a great day. Sterling is down on the US dollar by 0.20%, down on the euro by 0.29%, and down on the Japanese yen by 0.20%.
Well, Juliana, before I let you go, how much do we know about Lloyds Bank earnings?
Well, Lloyds Bank will be releasing their earnings as scheduled at the end of this month. So next Thursday, October the 31st, they'll be giving out just exactly what's going on with them. A lot of people are saying that they'll be particularly hit by Brexit uncertainty. Why? Because Lloyds is the biggest lender of mortgages. And we know that interest rates have been increasingly low, and that hasn't helped them trying to fight these big beasts and what's become a really competitive market, not just in banking, but in the UK and the mortgage sector. It's become increasingly difficult. Of course, I spoke to Bosun this morning about Barclays Bank and them having to pay over £1 billion in Q3 to the PPI, the missed payment of insurance. RBS had the same issue yesterday, so a lot of analysts are forecasting that even though before pre-tax Lloyds should be posting about £2 billion worth of profits, they're likely to be taking out by half of that with this PPI insurance claims.
Well, Brexit talks continue next week, and in the meantime, enjoy the rest of the weekend. It's been a wonderful time this week. Thank you, Juliana.
Thank you, Chimeze.
All right, Asian markets traded mixed on Friday as investors searched for guidance on developments in the US-China trade war and in the UK's planned departure from the European Union. The Nikkei 225 in Japan eked out a 0.22% gain to close at 22,799.81, while the Topix index added 0.29%. In South Korea, the Kospi index erased earlier losses to rise 0.11%. Australia's benchmark ASX 200 rose 0.68%. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng index dropped 0.36%. Chinese mainland markets erased early losses to climb in the afternoon. Shanghai Composite rose 0.48%. The Shenzhen Composite reversed losses to trade up 0.99%, and the Shenzhen Component Index advanced 1.1%. And U.S. stock index futures were trading mixed on morning at around 3 a.m. Eastern Time. Dow futures rose 29 points and indicated a slightly higher open. Futures on the S&P and Nasdaq both edged a slightly higher as well. Well, Wall Street ended them Thursday on a slightly positive note on the back of earnings reports from Microsoft and Tesla. But after the bell, Amazon disappointed investors with its third quarter results, with CEO Jeff Bezos reportedly losing $6.9 billion in one evening. The market focus on Friday remains on the corporate sector. AB InBev, Barclays and Verizon are among some of the major companies set to report earnings before the opening bell. Autoliv and Philips will be reporting their latest quarterly figures after market close. Meanwhile, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence said that Washington does not seek a confrontation with China as both countries continue to work towards a trade deal. On the data front, there will be consumer sentiment figures out at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And back here on the African continent, the HSBC Holdings PLC is embarking on a fresh round of job cuts, targeting hundreds of employees in the Middle East, North Africa and Turkey as the latest part of the lender's ongoing cost reduction program. The global banking and markets and commercial banking units may bear the brunt of the reduction, which are due to start in November. HSBC employs 4% of its total workforce in the region, according to its 2018 annual report, or about 9,600 full-time staff. Noel Kane, who took over as acting chief executive officer in August after the ouster of former CEO John Flint, has planned a series of retrenchment as he signaled he wants the top job on a permanent basis. More to come after the break. Do stay with us.